Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our special TRIM meeting. We're going to be talking about the budget and the proposed tax rate. I hope you're all doing well. We're going to start with a roll call.
Thank you. Mayor Brook.
Here.
Vice Mayor Carter.
Present.
Commissioner Sarah.
Present.
Commissioner Vignola.
Here.
Commissioner Simmons.
Here.
City Manager Babinick.
Here.
City Attorney Hearn.
Here.
Great. Thank you very much, Deborah. Vice Mayor, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure.
Great.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America
and to the republic
for
which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And if we would all remain standing, please, for the moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I'm excited about this workshop. JJ, if you'll give us the virtual meeting statement, please.
My pleasure. This meeting is being held in accordance with Coral Springs Resolution 2020-16. Due to the ongoing state of emergency and the recommendations from public health authorities, the City of Coral Springs recommends that all persons view and participate in this meeting through electronic means. The meeting can be viewed on City TV, on Bluestream Channel 725, 25, 25.7, and AT&T UVerse Channel 99. Online, coralsprings.org/citytv, and can be heard on City Radio at 1670 AM. For those individuals who may not have access to view the meeting by any of the virtual means provided above, the city is providing access to view the meeting on City TV outside the Coral Springs Municipal Center, the Municipal Complex at 9500 West Sample Road. If you plan to attend, please practice social distancing, wear your mask, and do not stand closer than 6 feet to those around you. Public comment is being received by phone and email. The local call number is 954-344-5900. To submit a written public comment, please complete the form located at coralsprings.org/public comment. Those attending the physical live stream at City Hall, methods provided for you to call in for public comment. Thank you, Mayor.
Great. Thank you very much. We are in the part of our meeting for our public comment. Deborah, are there any speakers?
Hi, Mayor. At this time, we do not have any signed speakers. I do not have anyone outside City Hall, and we do not have any callers on the phone line.
All right, very well. Then we'll go forward with our special meeting, starting with a presentation of the business plan by Catherine Gibbons.
Mayor, if I may, before we start.
Sure.
I just want to thank the commission for all of their hard work so far to this point in the budget process. And I want to thank staff for all of their work in the budget process so far. This has been a challenging budget cycle due to our current state of where we are with COVID and how it's affected the economy in our community. And a tremendous amount of work has gone into this, and we're very pleased with where we are in the process. And our budget office and all of our staff have done a great job. So I just wanted to say that, and I will turn it over to Catherine for her presentation.
That's appreciated, Frank. Thank you. Good afternoon, Catherine.
Hello, and good evening, and welcome to our special meeting to go over the business plan again, and then set the special non-ad valorem assessments for fire, solid waste, stormwater, and nuisance abatement, and also set the TRIM, the truth and millage. The property tax preliminary statement will be sent to our residences and business owners generally the second week of August by Broward County Property Appraiser's Office as a notification of the individual taxing authorities, their rates, and when those public comment is available for each of those taxing authorities. So remember, Coral Springs only receives about 30% of your tax bill, and we welcome comments on our portion of that tax bill. We've met in person and virtually multiple times throughout the year and in public forums for you to discuss the upcoming budget And I thank you for your time and your discussion in those sessions. As I said before, the business plan are the words behind the budget, and the budget is the numerical amount that supports that business plan. Staff has worked diligently. Thank you very much, City Manager Babinek, to talk about how much staff has worked on this. And this has gone into a very, very tedious and fierce budget. Thank you to my staff for their dedication. Imagine processing 4 different budgets on a tiny little laptop screen with changing timelines. And we know how much we all hold our breath when we're trying to save that really large spreadsheet. So thank you all very much for them, and great job to our department directors for their staff for being instrumental in refining and turning this around. So thank you. The budget is a team effort, truly. So let's go ahead and get started with this evening. It looks, this is the agenda. The current environment, we're going to be looking at budgeting for 2021, the projections for this year, the business initiatives fund overview. We'll go through a forecasting model, and that's where we're going to spend some time. We have Stantec here to go through that 5 and 10 year forecast, and then we'll go through next steps. So since I joined about 5 years ago, and I kind of said this story last time, but this time it's being recorded for our public. Every year, budgets have their challenges or big uphill theme. I mentioned last time that Melissa Heller has joked with me that I will have a normal budget, but this particular budget's uphill situation, as it became apparent, we then talked and said, you know what, is there ever really such a thing? So looking back even to the early 2000s, before Hurricane Wilma hit in 2005, the city and surrounding cities have been on a wild ride of hurricane recession, and now a pandemic, and a lot of other environmental conditions that are on this slide. We seem to always be trying to catch up from that last revenue reducing crisis. And we've spent the last 15 years trying to obtain reimbursements from the 1 or maybe 2 hurricanes. So one thing's clear, we have to be our own safety net. And this budget supports that as we look into the long range fiscal planning. So these are some of the environmental conditions that we are facing today, some positive, and others just being challenged that we will continue to work through. This budget focuses on adapting rapidly to changing conditions while ensuring that our residents and our businesses continue to receive quality services. More than ever, our budget needs flexibility to address our community needs, and this flexibility is possible because of the city's dedicated and innovative staff that continue to adapt to changing priorities without sacrificing service levels. During this past budget kickoff, by the way, budget kickoff is when all departments are tasked with supplying different items of the budget. So there are 3 things, 3 sections to this year, and each of these took hours and hours and hours worth of work. The first is the department directors are annually tasked to give and review and compile about 18 different sections of work that deals with the department mission, core processes, key performance indicators, staffing lines. Then the next was formulating multiple budget scenarios, which I shared last workshop, so I'm not going to go through that this time. And we talk about what we can afford to own, what we currently own. And we asked people that question, and the answer is no, but we'll talk about that a little bit more this year. We know this is not the year we can truly fully address that, but we'll continue to look at that. COVID's financial effects at a very basic level that we've had has had the greatest effect on the financial side is on revenues, or more specifically, what revenues we did not receive or are not receiving. Between the economists and scientists alike, we're unsure of the duration of this event, so we're speculating and using best estimates to form a budget at this point. This chart shows the yellow highlighted area of how much revenues have dipped. And since we're government agencies, when the revenues dip, then that must equal the expenses. Therefore, if you see the revenues dip, then we're going to have to move that expense line down. So this chart illustrates the result of about $12 million loss of revenue over 2 fiscal periods. This revenue loss is before any federal assistance or short-term borrowing, which we've done to protect ourselves if we need, thank you, Kim, or the action of filling that gap by using fund reserves or fund balance, which is a tactic that we are going to have to use. But this is just showing that depth of it. Our preliminary budget considers the following. It considers the assumptions are made on some revenues that are positive and others are negative. Thus, when we're in the state to say the revenues are variable, it depends on which exact revenue we're analyzing. This is good because we have good revenue diversification. We clearly would rather have all positive revenue sources. However, again, more revenue outlets, the better. Property values are positive. We've had another year of growth, 4.66%, and that's great and strong in Florida. Economists throughout the country are talking about this going forward, and the South Florida region continues to show growth while the rest of the country in large, minus some large cities, are showing a stall. Then we get into our state revenues, and this is negative. We're still waiting on the state estimates, which I'm expecting any day now. The state said between the 20th and the 24th of this month, so I know that Justin continues to check that. We only have our predictions and asking other cities, and I've been on many calls, emails to gauge our estimates off of other surrounding cities and in the state. So I feel good about what is in the budget to date. Charges for services are unknown depending on the spread and social distancing requirements. So this can change, and that's why I say unknown. Let's say if we're only to handle about 60% of capacity at City Hall and the mall, that's $1 million revenue source, then our revenues just went down to $600,000. So hopefully this is all a situation where we can be making one-time financial tactical decisions. We've talked a little about liquidating our older capital projects. This is what we looked at in the Equipment Services Fund depreciation, so that we would not have to charge the general fund the annual depreciation. We're able to keep Equipment Services, that fund, positive and not charge the depreciation. So that's about a $3.2 million tactic that we're using in this year's budget. The consequence is for 1 year, it's okay. However, it's risky for future years. So therefore this practice can't be repeated. Clearly we are restricting travel. Fortunately, we can leverage a lot of technology. More technology is available now, and we can continue to do learning through webinars, but clearly in-person seminars and STEMS training is better hands-on. We know that the cost of healthcare continues to rise and is expected to rise over 5.5% over the next decade. However, a 5% increase in that fund is not something that the city can absorb. That said, a lot of work took place in the health fund to keep costs down by opening an employee clinic and continuing the employees' cost share to increase the employee share, which at that point is going to bring that percentage down from a 97.3% to an 85.15% split. So that means that the cost of healthcare is being moved more to the employee. Dale and our partner with Hub, Brent, and the city manager and members of my team worked to whittle this number down to less than a percentage increase while keeping good health insurance and plans intact. This is beneficial for all funds, as the city has a benefits line in a majority of their funds, and this increase and decrease can affect those funds. So great job to Dale on that. We will continue an essential hiring practice into next fiscal year. We will hold on needed projects. We know that repairs are needed and infrastructure is still an area, but we're trying to still work with less here. On the appropriations line, then we'll continue our monthly financial review, and we will into next year. That is no change of what we always do, even in good times. But we will be looking quarterly just to see if we do need to change up tactics there, if we need to slow down or move back on some of the expenses. So some of the consequences on the operation are, I've already touched on a couple of them, but training is really important to city staff. We take being a leader in city government and the organizational structure to heart, as we want to be the best at delivering services. And this piece goes against that principle of being exceptional and trying to find every way to get better. However, we rather keep the team together and for 1 year find alternatives and hope for more offerings online and inexpensive ways for a year that we're all in this together. So we should be able to find that. And then we have some other reductions and cuts as well. So delaying the momentum. The delay of increasing our reserves, right now the range is 17 to 25%. We're currently at 18. We were just getting on the right side of financial sustainability to address the capital and our actionable strategic plan that was propelling the city forward. But if we are using our IRMA reimbursement, if we wouldn't have been using our IRMA reimbursement this year of about 4.5 million, our reserves would have gone up to about 21.5%. The $3 million of remaining IRMA reimbursement would have increased our reserves up to 23.8%. And then we just would have had maybe 2 years of surplus, and that's how we were planning on hitting the 25%. But clearly we know that we need to be able to delay in that plan. The addressing capital and the recurring in the general fund, the need is approximately $5 million. We only are funding it at 2.4 million. That's about half. The one-time capital, any capital that was approved in this budget was either something that was broken, it was a health and safety need, it was the need for compliance or compromising a large operation. The delay of funding plans of affording what we own, we're trying to set up and enhancing our facilities, AC and roof plans, and looking more into the parks replacement on adding in fencing. So some of the fencing pieces that have already been broken, those are the pieces that we will continue to move forward, but having that larger parks replacement plan on fencing, we can't move forward with at this time. We are still going to be looking at new replacement plans. We just may not be able to fund them or fund them at the rate that they need to be. So those are the radio equipment and the charter school CIP plan. On the other side of our strategic plan, we are going to be delaying some of these milestones. They will still all remain in the plan. It just means that some of those milestones may need to be stretched out or the project looked at again. So that would be the charter school relocation, the public safety and public works building, a delay in those milestones due to funding, the amphitheater development, Village Square development. Again, you've heard these things that we're still trying to move forward. Again, more of just a delay. The corporate park business development, this wound up being still a project that moved forward because we had very good, Christy and her team have done very good on having conversations with them. Just the different milestones, the milestones that we were going to do are a little differently. Entertainment destination strategy, co-working space development, and university presence on hold. The strategic plan completion, we have 53 projects in that plan at this point. Actually, we had 17, we're moving to 18 projects complete. We'll give you more of an update on that at our next retreat. And in our business plan, we have 185 projects that look to be right around the 95 number mark. So we still are being able, we have a dedicated staff that's committed to the business plan, committed to the strategic plan, and we will continue to do so, but it just delays some of that momentum. So where are we in the current fiscal condition? For our general fund, for the 2020 year-end projection, that is this year-end coming on September 30th, and the projections are as of June, so this is our latest financials. You can see that I've moved down. We are still in a deficit of about $3.3 million deficit. I have moved the year-end projection range from, it was 4 to 8 million. I've moved it down a little bit from 3 to 7, still kept myself that $4 million variability. Forecasters encourage ranges as the fluctuations and changing in market volatility are inevitable during this time. And clearly with social distancing and those requirements changing it, then that is, we know that things could go up or go down from that. But we do have a plan, which we've already shared, for how we're going to address this. The fire fund year-end projection, this number has also come down a little bit. Chief McNally and I have been working closely to be able to look at our options here for the projected deficit, which We do have one project that the county is going to be moving forward with the surtax, so that does free up that current capital dollars, as well as we have an operational line that we're probably going to use to have that offset. So the fire fund will come in at close to zero. We've talked about the museum fund, and again, this is an area that we will show a deficit, and the general fund will cover the museum's fund deficit. The other funds that we do have that I'm not mentioning will have either a slight surplus or they come out equal. So the other funds that the city has, they're in good condition. I just figured I'd talk about the ones that didn't want anyone to be surprised by. All right, going straight into the business initiatives. We take our direction clearly from the city commission. They are the ones that set our strategic goals: a responsible city government, city investment in today and the future, downtown becoming vibrant, growing local economy, and the premier community in South Florida. And what city staff does from then is you tell us the what and we tell you the how. How are we going to get there? And as I said before, here are some of the capital items that we're moving forward with. Again, some of these are replacements. Some of these are items that may have been broken or that we already have, again, within a plan. So at this time, you've seen and we've talked about the business plan and the projects that we have within them. Thank you very much for reading our business plan book that we put together. Again, thank you to my team for their time there. The business plan, again, was shared before. We have that on our website, and it goes into the description of each one of these projects that we have. So if there's any question, then I'm going to be going back to that document. If anyone from the public has questions, then that's where I would say start there, and then we'll kind of give you more information. So if there are any questions, I'm just going to go through this quickly since we've already talked about them. The proposed initiatives are the new initiatives, and we clearly have the ongoing initiatives that are a part of the strategic plan. That being said, I'm just going to pause here. Are there any questions on responsible city government?
Had one, Mr. Mayor.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. On the grant writer, because I know that that's been a huge asset to us, that the 10,000 seems low.
So we have a part-time grant coordinator that we added, and that has been very instrumental for many grants that we have, and instrumental in the connecting local businesses to grants and loans. So we really have leveraged Bradley Falcone in that area. What we use for the hiring of the grant consultant is more specialized grants. So we hired a specialized grant for the Bloomberg grant. And we've hired special policing grants. So we've hired someone that can write specific policing grants. So that's what we use to supplement some of our own items.
Okay. Thank you. That explains it.
Anybody else have any questions? You can just pipe in.
I have a question. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So for the partner with the retail economist, can you explain that a little bit? And then the existing, what the existing funds portion means?
Yes, and Christy can by all means chime in. This is something that came about from the Economic Development Strategic Plan and wanting to have more of an emphasis on businesses and retail. So Christy and I have partnered together to say, let's bring in a retail economist and talk to us about what is in the area, what they see that we should concentrate on, what they see it as. And we feel like we can use some of our existing dollars that we could support that. She actually has a contact where she thinks that this person may even be able to do this free of charge. So that's why we have existing funds.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. So then they'll kind of be able to speak to, because I know this has been on for a while. So obviously things have changed since this was first put on. So, hopefully this person will be able to kind of guide us through this, through this time as well. So thank you for explaining that.
Absolutely. And I do think that person will have their information being shared with us during the strategic planning sessions as well. That's what we're here, more of that information come out.
Sounds good. Commissioner Vignola.
Thank you, Mayor. Catherine, the bottom last line, Census 2020 Development Services, it's kind of cut off for the shared screen. I don't know if everyone else is seeing it like that, but I want to make sure that the public sees that last line so no one thinks we're trying to.
Why, thank you very much. I will make sure if I can I'll make sure I always say them. So yes, Census 2020 Development Services as an ongoing initiative. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you, Catherine.
Continue on. Let's go to our next strategic goal, and that is city investment in today and future. And the last line of that is the Sawgrass 10th Street Advocacy Plan and Development Services. Any questions on this particular goal area?
I think Vice Mayor raised her.
I did, but I'm on the wrong page. Wait, is this one? No, wait, this is the right page. I'm sorry. The senior center, what does that look like?
This is a part of the what's coming to you next retreat when we talk about the Parks Master Plan. There's going to be an element of that we will discuss, but we do continue to have senior programming expansion into every budget.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So can you explain the fencing replacement and repair program? What's that about? And then I'll get into the bottom 200 proposed initiatives.
Yes, you know what? I'm going to ask that Rob Hunter talk about the fencing replacement and repair, as this is something that he saw as a new director.
And before Rob takes off, I have a question about that also.
Okay. The fencing replacement and repair plan is we are currently mapping out. We got thousands of feet of fence throughout the entire city in our park system, ranging from 6 feet, 8 feet, 12 feet, backstops, vinyl, concrete fence and buffers, all throughout the park system. Currently, they're just continuing to get worn out. Most of them are past the 20-year mark. And we could either repair them or we can replace them, but we put so many Band-Aids on them right now that we felt that it was a need to start upgrading the fencing process because it's becoming more and more expensive each year. So by having a fence replacement and repair project in, we can make the minor repairs with those fees, and we can actually replace a lot of the old damaged fences that are out there currently. And like I said, there's probably close to $1 million worth of fence out there. And to do that at all one shot would be hard to swallow.
One of the things that we noticed along with this as well was a lot of the fencing structures were starting to rust, especially where there was connectivity to the poles and stuff. And obviously that being a little bit of a hazard, Rob was given direction to put a program in place to address it before it got to that in the future. And this is part of that. Can you afford, what you currently own, a project to make sure that we're not looking for money, that we're planning for it.
Okay. All right, thank you. And then for the last two, I've been talking about these bike lanes. I'm curious, and maybe I'm not doing enough reading or something. I thought this was what funds are we providing for these bike lanes? And I'll have some follow-ups for that. So what are we providing with these funds?
We entered into an agreement with the state, and this is part of the agreement of contingency that we had to cover. So this is part of an agreement that we had signed for both of those particular lanes.
Okay, so basically we're pretty much, in layman's terms, we're contracted with them to provide these funds.
If Catherine, if you want to have Rich weigh in on this, I think we're required to be part of this. So if Rich wants to give us, or Susie,
sure,
if you want to give us a little bit on that.
Yes, we are required to by the contract that we signed with them to do the work.
All right. So I guess at this point, basically, it doesn't matter how, what the residents say or how upset they are. This project is going forward. I mean, you don't have to answer that question because it's kind of like a bad question, but at the end of the day, this project is going forward. Yes or no?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Vignola, you'd have a question for Rob?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Hunter, the fencing replacement and repair, I know the city made a kind of policy years ago that all fencing gets replaced with a black vinyl fence. I'm wondering where we're at with the other fence areas that we're doing. I know for some of the fences that were replaced before we started going to the vinyl fence, we started painting them to give them that black look. So it's a fresher look, it's a cleaner look, it hides the rust, it protects the fence. And are we still continuing that in different areas, do you know, or?
Yes, we have been painting the fences. We haven't done it this year because we got most of them done last year. We bought our own machine last year and we started painting all the fences that we could at Mullins Park. So anywhere we can paint and touch up the fence to salvage them, we are going to continue to do that program. But any of the ones that where we see the big indents and rust, like Frank said, and are damaged that are going to need replaced, we know that people hit softballs and balls into the fence, and they put kick soccer balls into the fence, and they just run into the fences. Those kind of damaged fences that start fraying become safety issues when the metal starts being exposed through the fences. We've been band-aiding them, but now with losing the bottom rails and the wear and tear on them over 20 years, we're going to use a replacement on them. So we're going to use our best judgment to continue the painting program, and then we'll replace the ones that are severely damaged right now and need replaced, and we'll continue with the repair programs where we can get away with it. So we're going to be very frivolous with this money and how we use it.
And the other question I have related to the fencing with the parks is, I know we started, a lot of our neighborhood parks, community parks have some different fencing materials, and we were replacing for a little bit some of our like white picket style fencing with something that's a little bit different. And a good example would be Lakeview Park over there by Lakeview near Coral Ridge, that lower fence. And I just wanted to make sure that we weren't replacing some of our nicer fence materials, especially in our neighborhoods where it affects property values more directly, with a lower quality type fence. I just want to make sure that we, don't skimp out there and replace something that looks nice with something that is not aesthetically pleasing.
I would never do that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you both. And Rob, I think the word you meant was frugal.
Frugal, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yes. No worry. It's COVID time. It's COVID
That's right.
time, you know.
It's long days.
You're doing a great job, Rob. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions on this second goal?
Commissioner Sarah, any questions from you? Okay, we're good. Thanks, Catherine.
All right, let's go to the next one. It is downtown becoming vibrant. And just to make sure that everyone can see that last line, it is Village Square Development, Economic Development. Are there any questions? Okay. Mayor, I think, were you muted?
Yeah, no questions from me. Anybody else have any questions?
Great. Okay.
Oh.
Moving right along to growing local economy. And the last slide here says corporate park drainage and infrastructure upgrade in public works. Are there any questions on this goal?
I'm interested to learn a little bit more of the co-workspace development.
Okay, Christy, if you wouldn't mind answering that one.
Sure, that was one that we've actually put on delay as of right now. Because of the pandemic, a lot of people are working remotely, and so there's really no need to put people together. That being said, we have been in conversations with Cornerstone, as they will have an office component, and letting them know that we would like them to include a co-working space. We've also had conversations with University Place at the Darth Vader building, for lack of a better term, and they've had conversations with some co-working tenants. The only issue is that a lot of them would like them to have subsidized space while they're waiting to get tenants in. And so you've got a little push and pull there to see how that's going to work. So it's still on the horizon. I think a lot of it's going to see how we recover from the pandemic, and if people are going to get back into offices, and once we get back to the new normal, what that looks like.
And Christy, any idea of the current vacancy rate for office space and what's projected?
I can look. I know I sent this to someone probably last week. I want to say it was 11%, but don't quote me. Let me look it up, and I will
take a look and tell us later, or
Okay.
another day if you can't find it during this workshop.
I think we did it for retail and for office, but let me check on that.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions on this growing local economy? Go ahead, Commissioner Simmons.
All right, thank you. you, Mr. Mayor. All I wanted to say was just thank you for having the researching local procurement options. Sounding like a broken record. I've been asking about this since I got here, and I'm excited to see this, still being a part of the plan. So thank you.
Great. Go ahead, Vice Mayor Carter.
Mine's a Christie question as well. The Coral Springs Regional Chamber of Business, what is that about?
That's the Business Academy. It will be in its fourth year, I believe. So we're going to pivot slightly and try to make more content for business sustainability because we've seen a lot of businesses, all of a sudden the COVID hit and they're like, I didn't plan for it. We want to make sure that they're better prepared if any type of disaster like this, God forbid, happens in the future.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Larry, any questions?
Yeah, I know with the regional chamber, we kick in a bit of resources, and I know we give them free space in our city hall. I'm curious as to what the other cities that are part of the Coral Springs Regional Chamber, what they're kicking in to be good partners with this. I don't want it to be where the city of Coral Springs businesses are paying for everything through their taxes that help out the regional chamber, and then we're kicking in more than some of the other cities that are reaping the benefits of being part of the Coral Springs Regional Chamber. That's more my concern with that. So maybe it's something we could take a look at a workshop or something we could discuss a little bit more, but I definitely want to make sure that we're making sure other cities are kicking in also.
Gotcha. Go ahead, Frank.
If that's the direction of the commission, we can certainly look into that to get that answer.
Yeah, it's okay by me. I'm also interested in doing a comparison with maybe some other local cities and chambers and what they contribute or don't.
I'll get with Catherine and Christy on this and we'll do some research.
Okay. Thank you. It looks like that's it for questions, unless Commissioner Sarah had something. All right.
And this is our last strategic goal area, the premier community in South Florida. And just to confirm, and this is, I added this last section below on CDBG. It talks about the sidewalk replacements on Northwest 85th Ave, Northwest 91st Ave, and Northwest 34th Court. It is all part of CDBG funding that was just approved, but I thought it was still great work that'll be done in the community. So I wanted to add it onto the slide. Are there any questions on this particular goal area?
Yeah, I would love to get some details on the Code Ranger program. Is it Code Ranger or Code Range?
Code Ranger.
Code Ranger. So Mayor, I can have Bob give a quick update on that as to where he is on that. He's working on that.
Okay.
Yes, good evening. So I'm currently working with Development Services, Susie's office on this. Right now, the Rangers, the existing volunteers, have communicated to us that, being part of the vulnerable population, their desire was not to continue with the volunteer aspect at this time. So we're currently working on recruiting some new volunteers and then getting them through the training process. One of the things that I'm envisioning this revitalization of the Ranger program to be an extension of the Neighborhoods with Integrity aspect. And we would utilize the Rangers in more of an outreach and educational aspect, in addition to supporting the code enforcement operation. But that's kind of the direction that we're going to go. So we're going to get a little bit further down the road here. Hopefully we start flattening these numbers a little bit and we can get those volunteers back into that program.
Got to flatten those numbers, that's for sure. That's for sure. Any questions from anybody on this slide? All right, we can keep moving. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I have one.
Oh, go ahead, Commissioner.
I just wanted to again commend you all for having Neighborhoods with Integrity on there. I'm glad we got that on there. That's for you, Commissioner Sarah. I'm really happy we got that on there.
All right. Here are some other things that our residents and businesses can look to see. Our Tree Trust Fund is going to be funding 300,000 of the landscape improvements down Sample Road from University Drive to 441 and from Sawgrass Expressway to University. If there are other funds available, then Claudia will move to Coral Ridge Drive, Westview Drive to Wiles Road. This is that budget. Again, I am not one to budget the money for this particular fund until I see it. We do know that there are upcoming projects, so we do know revenues will be coming in. I could project possibly the year-end balance somewhere around $500,000, but until I see that money coming in, I have that as a positive $375,000. All right. We have a couple budget and operational large opportunities ahead of us, which are also some are challenges. And the top line overall, I say, are opportunities in areas that we are going to grow. We do have some challenges on the workload side, but it's something that our staff is really looking forward to achieve and looking forward to. But these are some of the large projects that we have ahead of us: the ERP system, ADA, and the dispatch communications, the expansion of that. Here are some known fiscal challenges are kind of the bottom line. The public safety, public works campus, we know that that's going to be forthcoming. We do know that we still do have capital items that still need to be discussed, and we never know when we will receive another unfunded mandate. I've at least let you know that we know the mortality tables are going to change for our fire and police, so that's just something that we are working toward. All right. The new staff for 2021 is one pension coordinator. This is a conversion of a part-time to full-time position. This position has no cost to the general fund, as the police and fire pension boards are funding this position. So this is going to be no impact to the general fund. However, I still just want to make sure you understand that one position count. Also, what's not on the screen, and this is going to be coming to you forthcoming next commission meeting, August 5th, is to recognize, potentially recognize the Coconut Creek startup cost with an additional 2 positions in this fiscal year, but that is going to be forthcoming at an upcoming commission meeting. Therefore, any of our adds to staff right now for 2021, I don't have included. I will then include for budget hearing time. Just wanted to be transparent about what's coming there. So what we'll see, and this is what we have for 2020 and 2021 without any of the additions. This is what, except the one part-time to full-time conversion position. You can see that the orange up top are the contract positions. These are the positions that the city of Parkland, let's say, will pay us. And this is the section of orange that if we receive any other contract, let's say Coconut Creek, then those numbers will be added in that orange section where another city covers that cost. The blue is for Coral Springs. This is a city staff comparison. We've kind of looked at this as our productivity chart and to see where our employee count to the resident count is. And you can kind of see where our employee are certainly doing a lot more with less. We have fewer of us than that on those to the, depending on how you're looking at this, to the left side. All right. These are some of the funds that you will be, or the assessments that you will be setting tonight. Remember, the final assessment will be set on Monday, September 4th. This is the number that will be going on people's trim. Will be going on that property, the property preliminary number. So remember, when we set the rate, we cannot go higher. At this point, we can only go lower come September, but I think that we have our numbers fairly well set. So this is the fire assessment. And the preliminary fire assessment for residential. I know we've talked about, we have gone from single family with one rate and multifamily at a different rate. And now we've moved ourselves to just having a residential, which is the more commonplace for Broward County municipalities. You can see that number going to 234. The commercial actually is going down, so that'll be good news for our businesses. Industrial warehouse will be going up, and institutional really is ourselves. No adds to staff, a focus on firefighters' safety and health, and here are some of their capital purchases. Are there any questions on the fire assessment or the fire fund? Okay. The residential solid waste assessment comparison. This is the look, again, knowing that each city is slightly different on their waste hauler and their service levels. This is a harder one to kind of balance. Let's go into the next slide because this is where we had a little bit of conversation at the last workshop. We had the conversation of option one, which is keeping the solid waste assessment the same at $290. Or going to option two, which is reducing that contingency number down to $5. At that point, then chances are, I will say, we have less of a contingency. And whenever we do go out for a contract at that point, it could widen that bump. So at this point, just looking for, Frank, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, and I just want to make it clear that we can lessen this at this point, but at some point there is going to be a little bit of makeup, maybe even before we go out to RFP. It just depends. Rich is confident that that number will do just fine for the next budget cycle. However, at some point there is probably going to be a little makeup there.
Yeah, so as I had supported the last time, I'm still in support of option two. So I know you want to see if there's consensus. Is that right, Frank? Commissioner Simmons?
I'm just trying to make sure that this was, I trust that this is what we talked about. I thought the number might have been different. I thought it was something more than 283, but I could be wrong. But I'm cool with option two.
No, sir, it was dropping down the $6.10 off of the contingency. So it brought it down to the 283.90. I think we might have been using round numbers, Commissioner, last time. We might have said it was around 284, 285, but.
Commissioner Vignola and then Commissioner Sarah.
So the difference between option one and option two to a resident is about 50 cents a month. I'd rather leave it at option one, and this way we don't have to go ahead and move back later on. I know that's something that our residents spoke about when we did the tax increase in the past, was they'd rather be prepared down the road and do things in small increments. And if we're going to have some type of true up down the road, I'd rather keep it at where it is at the 290 and leave that there.
Thank you. Commissioner Sarah?
Thank you, Mayor. I brought this up at our last workshop, and there's really not a market for recycling anymore. I strongly feel that we need to go to the waste to energy model. I was wondering if staff, specifically Rich, could speak to this, because I did have a conversation with Bob and Rich since our last workshop. And there might be some potential savings in that category, and I don't know if that's something that we can incorporate into this recommendation. So is it possible that Frank, if Rich could give us a quick update on our conversation?
There's nothing better that Rich likes to talk about than trash.
So be it.
Hi, Rich.
First, hi, good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. First, let me address the contingency line and why that line is important. Maybe not for next fiscal year, but certainly in the out years. There is a feeling that the next time the city, or we've seen it in other cities, go out bid on the hauling contract, which is our Waste Pro contract, that the rates for hauling are going to jump considerably, considering our high level of service. So the contingency was created last fiscal year to be that buffer over time, that if we didn't want to transfer the full cost to the resident, we had some money contingency to sort of buffer that cost. The same would apply to disposal. As you know, there's a coalition of cities that are gathering, trying to figure out what to do with solid waste in the future. And that magic year is 2024, when something's going to happen, whether they add a second boiler to the waste energy plant, or whether they build a recycling facility. This contingency line was built to cushion that increase should we need it in as late as 2024. So that's kind of the basis for that contingency line. So it's not necessary that we have the full $11 for 21, but certainly when you get into 22 and 23, there needs to be a concerted effort to build that line up again. So let me just go over the other lines on this slide and what they mean. And I want to do the comparison from 2020 to 21, and I'll point out the differences in the options as we go along. So Waste Pro, that's the hauling component of our solid waste assessment. And that's only hauling. That's only the drivers, the trucks that haul the waste in your green carts to Wheelabrator. And the difference between 20 and 21 is really a CPI going from 86.28 to 87.89. So Waste Pro, although they tend to be the face of our garbage collection program, only receive about 30% of that solid waste assessment. The next category is disposal, and we have a contract with the county to take our solid waste to Wheelabrator. Wheelabrator has a waste to energy facility. At one time, back in the 90s, there were two of those, one in the north, one in the south. When the ILA broke up in 2018, and some cities decided to take their waste to Sun Bergeron, which really meant everything was being landfilled. There was not enough demand to have a second waste to energy plant in the north, so Waste Management at that time shut it down. So Waste Pro hauls our garbage to the Wheelabrator plant down in Davie. And that is a waste to energy plant. And when they were built back in the late 80s and 90s, it was very much a state-of-the-art facility with the whole basis of getting recycling credit from the state. So comparably, you get about half the credit through the state formula by taking it to waste to energy as you would by direct recycling. The franchise fee is a fee that's paid by Waste Pro to the city for the right to use the streets and et cetera, et cetera. It's a standard fee in solid waste industry. The processing is what the commission suspended at my recommendation back in May. The costs for recycling were just going through the roof, and we were going to be over budget. So I made a recommendation back in May that we suspend the agreement with Waste Management and redirect recyclables to the waste to energy plant at Wheelabrator. That suspension is still in effect. And the last meeting I had showed that line would have to increase by another $10 for the year in order to keep up with the rates for paying Waste Management to process our recyclables. Now, just yesterday, I received a letter that Waste sent to all their cities, and where I was estimating that the cost to process recyclables, had we gone with the option from last meeting, I had estimated to be $75 a ton. Now that compares to $45 a ton at Wheelabrator. But due to the markets and the CPI adjustment to Waste Management, the cost to recycle or the process of recyclable is now gone to $86.55 per ton. So as you can see, even at last meeting, if we would have gone with that recommendation, we would have already been sort of trying to catch up, hoping that the market would rebound to make that number smaller, but things are not getting better, they're getting worse. The other line on this slide was, we took out the Recycle Right line, which would have been a program trying to reduce contamination. And the remaining lines on this slide are the Hazardous Waste Program, administration for BCPA to handle our assessment, the early payment discount, and of course, we just talked about the contingency line. So the traditional form of recycling is not happening today, and based on the cost and the $283.90 would not be happening next year as well. That puts us in a position where we need to notify Waste Management what our intent is, whether we terminate altogether or whether we ask them to extend the suspension and we readdress it again next year at this time. Hopefully I answered a lot of your questions through that presentation.
Anybody have any questions? Commissioner Serra, go ahead first.
Yeah, I want to applaud Rich for his work. I know that we blazed a trail in this particular area in the past, and I would really push the commission and my colleagues to give staff the opportunity to do that again. When we met last time, I was leaning towards option 2 based on the information that I had. Now that I've been able to look into it a little bit deeper, I switched my position to option 1 with waste to energy. But I definitely think that waiting is a mistake, and I think that we really should push the county and ultimately as a city lead the renegotiating in the direction that we want to go in this particular area.
I'm happy to support your leadership along those lines, and I'm happy to flip back over to option one. I like the
Not sure if it was my computer or the mayor's, but I lost a
Yeah,
signal.
I thought it was me too.
that it says my internet connection is unstable.
Yep.
You're back, sir.
Yeah, sorry about that. Vice Mayor, did you have something?
Mayor, can we hang on 1 second? I just want to make sure we're still recording and we're online, okay?
That's
Yeah.
recording on the screen.
Bob, can you confirm that? Mayor, I just want to make sure everything's still, within the parameters of what we have to do for public access.
Sure.
Justin, do you have an answer to that?
It did blink for me as well. Very strange.
Justin, just let us know when we're good to continue, okay?
Matt says it's still recording, and it says it's still recording to the cloud, so I believe we're fine. But that was a weird blink, so it might have been just Zoom itself.
Could be. Could be.
Hey, Mayor, looks like we're good to go.
Yeah, because I'm not in Coral Springs, and I had that instability. So any further questions along these lines or comments?
I do.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Okay, so I tend to agree with Commissioner Vignola and the comments that we received from residents is like, don't hit us hard, make things gradual, which I think is a stronger position to go to. My question would be for Rich, if it was option 2, does that $5 put us behind the 8 ball?
Well, the rates are set for next year. The variable that we can never, pardon me?
I'm talking about the contingency plan.
Right, so the contingency plan is there also as a cushion should there be more volume generated than what we budget for. We feel pretty good about, there's money already in contingency. This would be just building into the contingency. So I think we feel pretty good about the $5 contributing to our contingency and being able to handle any unforeseen conditions, yes.
I just thought about this, Rich. I think I read somewhere that they're having a hard time having employees actually do the work. Am I correct?
Well, like any other business, Waste Pro is suffering from COVID as well. They've had some employees out. They've had to take their supervisors and put them behind the wheel of their trucks. So, and then that's just happening everywhere, as you know. So yes, they're stretched, and they're doing the best they can given the circumstances.
And Rich, do you know, is there more garbage to haul because of COVID?
Our bulk numbers are much higher than they were this time last year, yes. People are cleaning out their garages and putting it curbside.
Yeah.
I've been one of those, yeah. And I need to do more. Okay, anything else on here?
I just want to make sure that I now have consensus to move forward with option 1 with 290.
That is correct.
Okay. And we're moving over to the stormwater assessment. The annual, we've had our first year now of having a stormwater assessment. The last 2020 annual assessment was 115.66, and the proposed increase is a $3.47 increase over a year. So the annual proposed assessment will be $119.13. And the projects that are in progress are at the corporate park. The design has been will be completed this fiscal year. Construction to commence in a couple months in November. Meadows and Dells drainage, that's coming. The design is in progress this fiscal year and construction to commence in May. And Westchester Drainage is also going to be underway with the design 2020 and construction to commence in 2022. Yes.
Do you know with these proposals, does that wind up potentially helping our homeowners in these areas or the corporate park owners regarding reducing flood insurance rates?
I would have to, Rich, I'm not going to say yes, no, or that. Rich, are you aware, or is that something that we can get from Chen Moore?
Flood insurance is a whole other topic that's determined, I believe, through FEMA. Alex Galcone, can you chime in on this?
I'm just curious. It's not so important. Don't worry about it.
I can answer your question real quick.
Okay.
Rich is right. The flood insurance is set by flood maps that are determined by the federal government. It's just flat,
Gotcha.
kind of a flat fee across the board.
Understood.
So yeah, I don't really think it would have any effect.
Okay. Any questions on this item? All right. Does anybody have an objection to the proposed increase? Okay. Looks like you're good to go, Catherine.
All right. There's another assessment that I don't have a slide to, and that is the nuisance abatement. It is also included in what you will be voting on. These are some of the parcels that city has been working on that we have done a number of work on, and this is just bringing it back to those particular property owners to be able to pay for those particular ones on their tax bill. Also, just kind of that's it for the assessments. Wanting to let the public know that we do receive more money for grants. This is our excellent grant team headed by Kristen Holowicki, and we do have Bradley Falcone in that team, and also many other departments that they partner with to be able to know the grants in their areas. So fire is a department that will always team up to work with them. Police, we have Parks and Rec, we have Public Works, we have a lot of even HR have worked with us in formulating grants. So we've explored 30 million, applied for 23.4 million. We have about 18, right under 18 grants in progress. We asked money from the state, none was awarded. They were all vetoed clearly in the COVID budget or due to COVID in the budget. And we've had $2.4 million awarded. So I'm very happy for them. During COVID, we made the decision to turn our grants department from the inside out to say, you know what, instead of looking to the city, let's look on the outside to be able to connect federal, state, foundations, any money that we can find throughout our tools. Let's connect with the businesses to see if we can help them write these grant applications or loan programs. And in doing so, we were able to connect $1.4 million into businesses in Coral Springs. So I think that is tremendous work. And thank you very much to that team and Bradley, Kristen, and Gabby for doing that. So that's a really great testament to their work. As I've spoken about, we have a number of reimbursements that are underway. We are still looking for about $3 million that from Hurricane Irma. We have received right under $7 million for Hurricane Irma, but we still are waiting for that $3 million. For Hurricane Dorian, we have submitted that project. And at this point, I know that Alex has been working on trying to get us in queue for Hurricane Dorian reimbursements. And as we continue in COVID, we will also be continuing tracking expenses and working with the county on CARES Act money to be able to go towards our reimbursements there. As we've talked about, Kim has put in an open line of credit for the city just in case for 30 months. This is great. And we will also have that at our disposal, being that we are in hurricane season now. I've spoken a little bit about the Broward County surtax. This is the tax that we have all been paying since last January, and we are starting to see some projects come to fruition. The items on the left side of the screen are all Coral Springs related projects. The emergency traffic signals outside Station 71 and 80. We're also having the city sidewalk improvements, another sidewalk construction, and a bus shelter replacement. Over to the right side, when we're talking about milling, paving, and resurfacing of alleyways, that is a Broward County project, while it is going to be in the city limits of Coral Springs. So we'll be working on that as well. We were hoping for, we did submit for more projects. However, they were not funded. They were not high enough in the list. There were so many cities that had projects being submitted, and there was a ranking to that of our, as I kind of look here, some of our road resurfacing projects are items that we're really going to push for next, for the next round of voting, which will be in a couple months on project formulation for that. So we'll continue to work with the county on making sure that people's their tax dollars there are being brought into Coral Springs. So where's the money?
Sorry.
Yes.
Oh, go right ahead.
So just want to ask, kind of for the record of what we're doing, the alleyways resurfacing, milling and paving, why, I guess, did we choose that over maybe any other type of project? Why alleyways? You know, there are people that will say, why are we using this funding for alleyways? Could you kind of speak more to that project or someone?
Rich, could you handle that question, please?
I think the strategy with the surtax was trying to have it supplement our existing CIP programs. The transportation CIP contained alleyway improvements, road resurfacing, sidewalks, bike lanes, those sorts of things. So we were just trying to use other people's money to fund those particular programs. And the alleys are city-owned right away, so we've got to make sure that they're in as good a condition as possible. And I would say this is the first time they've had any kind of improvement other than going over to fix a pothole.
Commissioner Simmons, I will tell you that this has been, the alleyways has been a conversation as long as I've been on the commission.
No, I'm not asking for me. I'm asking for the public.
No, I meant before you got there.
Right. I'm asking for the public because I understand why we're doing it. I know why we're doing it. It's just I've had people ask me about it. And so I'm just asking for the record.
Sounds good. Go ahead, Commissioner Vignola.
The sidewalk construction along 39th from Coral Ridge to 100th, should that be 110th?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure because I'm wondering if there's a different 39th, so we didn't specify which one there. And all right, that's just an area that's interesting to me. That's where I grew up, so I know we did all the improvements along 110th, and I'd like to see some continued improvements over there. So it's great.
Yes.
All right, any other questions on this? All right, we can keep moving.
We've talked about this before. Where does the money come from? We have distinct buckets of where general fund dollars typically come in. The largest being our ad valorem, 48% come in. That's about $62.5 million come in through ad valorem. We also have our top 8 revenues. Many of them are state shared revenues. So that is a number that we have revenues at risk in coming down. And then charges for services and user fees, that's about 19%, bringing in about 25 million. Those are also some of those revenues at risk during COVID, during social distancing. This is our general fund 5-year forecast. And if you weren't seeing the below the previous slides on the bottom line, then you're not seeing the most important line on this one, which is for the current fiscal year, we're right at 300,000 right now in a deficit. That's 300,000 on a $130 million budget is within range right now. I'm still waiting on state revenues. I'm still kind of shoring up a couple things. So we're very much close. And as long as state shared revenues doesn't swing completely out of whack, then I feel confident in being able to bring this in clearly for revenues equaling expenditures. And the outlying years, we also do have a positive 5-year forecast. At this point,
before you move on from that, one thing I do want to hit on is you guys have known from past, the 5-year forecast is something that we really work very hard to have that at a positive or a zero the best we can. And we've worked very hard to keep the 5-year forecast in line during these times. So that's something that when I know when Catherine looks at and our budget folks look at it, it makes them pleased to see that as well as it should make us pleased to see it.
For sure.
Thank you. I probably mentioned 5-year forecast. I don't know how many times a week. So it's something that I certainly stay very close. I always have that paper right with me. This is a slide that I included, and I actually have another slide as well. Commissioner Vignola asked to show this slide last time and this is a slide that I showed. The slide was from July 2017. This is the meeting that we had when we were setting trim memory year lane 3 years ago. This same time, we were looking at $6.5 million deficit, going down to 19 million over 5 years. The red caps are operational capital that was requested to be added. So at that point, it brought it lower to 8 million. But this is what a 5-year forecast, previously would look like. So the reason why he was asking for this was to look at these lines. And I'm actually going to go forward to go back. And a previous conversation, it was during this conversation when I was complimenting how closely, as you can see, they're green and red lines, how closely they are hugging one another. The fact that we will have the revenues, whatever is happening with revenues, you can see the expenditure line moving in that same way. So let me go back to the previous, there we go. And you can see the expenditure, that red line being higher than that of the revenue line being below. That just means that there's going to be more of a work of a true up while you're trying to balance a budget to say, okay, we need more revenues, or you know what, you're going to have to cut expenditures. So the fact that we've been able to bring that more in line and yes, have the positive 5-year forecast, it's a testament of the commission to make sure that we do have a positive 5-year forecast, and kudos to staff to being able to live within that, of being able to do that. So, hopefully Commissioner Vignola, these are the slides that you're wanting to see.
Yeah,
Look good to you, Larry?
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to see. And I know Mayor Brook and Commissioner Carter, you were a part of the commission years ago when we used to see those not heading in the right direction. And staff or the team across the board, I think, has just done an excellent job. And Catherine, kudos to you. I think this is really important when we look at every time we had any types of challenges, when we operate on such slim margins across the board, to be able to forecast like this and be prepared across the board. I think this is something that's going to set the city up for tremendous success in the future, regardless of what obstacles the city faces. But I cannot stress the importance of that when you look at the difference in the 5-year forecast. And also when you look at the general fund 5-year forecast that Catherine had up a couple slides ago with the dollar amounts, that is also looking at, instead of doing a large tax increase, do small incremental tax increases to adjust for, the increased cost of doing business. So I think that's really important to highlight. It's as long as we stay the course as the elected body, staff is able to do their job effectively and be ahead of the game. And I just really want to highlight that because I won't be a part of this team anymore moving forward with those. But as long as we stick to that plan, we're in as good shape as anybody right now. So,
and thank you, Larry. And these last three slides are an example of our transparency. And I just, want to take about a minute right now because a lot of people aren't necessarily focused on, okay, we've got a September 4 assessment that we're looking at and what's occurring before then, and can I give input then to possibly change the millage rate? And really now's the time to hear from our residents. These are the slides for them to take a good look at. I think we have good buy-in from our community. That's my pulse. I gather you all feel similarly, and people are looking for transparency more than ever before. And Catherine, these are great examples. So thank you.
Thank you. And at this point, I am going to, again, on this one, I will just say that what spawned the conversation was the fact that we know that we have to bring the revenues down, so the expenditures must go down. So overall, our expenditure change has gone down 2%. We continue to control our expenditures. We continue to look at stabilization, stay within the range, continue the revenue diversification that is looked highly upon with our rating agencies, and clearly can keep our service levels for our residents and businesses. I think I said earlier that we have invited Stantec. They have been instrumental in illustrating and talking with us as staff. I know with the commission to show some of the changes. If we make an adjustment, then this is what that looks like on the 5-year forecast. So I'm going to invite Peter Napoli to join. And at this point, he is going to go over some slides, and then we'll go over that scenario, the 5 and 10 year forecast. So go ahead, take it away, Pete.
Yes, thank you for that introduction, Catherine. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. My name is Peter Napoli, and I'm your consultant from Stantec and the project lead this year on the General Fund Financial Sustainability Analysis. This is really a continuation of several years of work with the city, and I have a brief presentation for you today summarizing the results of this year's update, and then we'll have an opportunity afterwards to switch over to the live financial model, and we can evaluate any scenarios that the commission may want to see and discuss some sensitivities that the general fund has to different variables being manipulated. So just to start off with a little background on our process, as you know, your city staff puts together that 5-year forecast, and we kind of expand on that and extend it to a 10-year forecast. And basically, we project the revenues and the expenses based on some agreed on assumptions and some variables that are known to us. In addition to that, we program in the debt service, the capital improvement program, anything that may affect the cash flow sustainability of the city's general fund over the next 10 years. And once we load all this into our financial model and agree on all the assumptions and calibrate everything with your city's budget staff, we then have a financial model that allows us to evaluate scenarios both internally with meetings with staff and management, and in the public setting with you, the commissioners. And you can see the impact, the future consequences really of current decisions. So if you were to change any kind of variables that may relate to the expenses, like additional programs or FTEs or capital projects, you can see how that affects your financial sustainability. And then on the opposite side, if you changed any variables that relate to your revenues, you can see how that would impact the city's sustainability. So as I said, this long-term financial management plan is kind of inclusive of all those components, and it's our goal is to provide you with a sustainable 5-year forecast. So some background with our specific work with the city. We started in 2017, and we first performed this financial sustainability analysis, and there are a lot of unique circumstances and challenges that the city was facing related to costs really outpacing the revenues. The city was looking at near-term deficits and the potential to fall beneath those minimum reserve requirement for that stabilization fund that you have in your general fund. We worked with you to develop a plan that included adjustments to the personnel costs, adjustments on the revenue side. And each year since then, we've been asked to come back and update our financial model to reflect any changes in the legislative or economic environment around the city of Coral Springs, and also prioritizations that are in place, and to take into consideration some unforeseen events, for example, hurricanes, and most relevant now, the pandemic that none of us could have seen coming. So At the end of last year's study, we recommended the city implement a stormwater utility fee, and that helped offload some of the cost burden on the general fund side and freed up some cash flow. And then we also recommended the consideration of future millage increases beginning in fiscal year 2022 and then every other year throughout the projection period. This would help the city maintain its revenues to cover its operating costs in the future. The operating costs are ever escalating with known escalation related to healthcare, insurance, personnel, salaries and benefits, capital investment. So it's important that your revenues also increase and cover those the growth of those operating expenditures. Earlier this year, we started our update. I believe we started around early March, late February, and the real narrative this year was to develop a number of different scenarios that evaluated recessions, potential recessions that the city could experience, similar to the 2008 housing recession, and how the city might be able to maneuver and respond to those recessions. Well, that all got put on hold because COVID-19 showed up, and we weren't able to do that presentation. And obviously, there were more important initiatives by the city's budget staff that they had to take care of. So we put the study on hold, and then we were brought back this month to update our financial model again to show the impacts of what we're currently experiencing in relation to COVID-19. So just to review the key inputs and assumptions that are loaded into this year's financial model, Catherine already went through all of this in her presentation before, so I'll just quickly touch on them. We have that $6 million reduction in revenues attributed to the loss in economic activity stemming from COVID-19 and the stay-at-home order and all the restrictions that we have in place to keep us safe right now. We also have the offsetting adjustments, the solutions to filling that $6 million budgetary gap programmed into the model for fiscal year 2020. And that's the reduction to operating expenditures, the savings in salaries and benefits from the non-essential hiring freeze, capital savings from the reprioritization and repurposing of projects, and also that use of reserves related to the $3.5 million the city that received from FEMA.
And just to be clear, Peter, that $3.5 million was received in which year?
This current fiscal year 2020.
Yeah, I think if we're sharing this with the public beyond, we should be clear that we've received it in this year as well.
That's correct.
Thank you.
So the $3.5 million was repurposed to help solve this budgetary gap related to COVID-19. And then going forward in fiscal year 2021, the proposed budget that's on the table right now includes all of the estimations for revenue, impacts on the sales tax side, the state shared revenues, the charges for services. There is a lot of uncertainty that's built into this. However, the city is taking a real conservative approach right now. And it's really similar to a lot of other cities in the state where you want to plan for the worst case scenario, and none of us really know how long the economic impacts of COVID-19 will last. And there's obviously the direct impacts of the loss in economic activity, but there's the indirect impacts too of the increase in unemployment and the potential instability with the housing market and property values in the future. So right now we have the revenue reductions built into fiscal year 2021 that we've agreed on with staff, and we also have adjustments on the expense side to make up for those revenue reductions. So that Catherine went over those. They include the alternative funding for 1 year of the vehicle depreciation chargebacks, and then overall departmental personnel and operating reductions. Going forward in fiscal year 2022.
Hold on 1 second, Peter. Commissioner Simmons has a question.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Hey, thank you, Peter, but this is more for Catherine. Catherine, I just want to make sure we're clear. So it says $6 million. That's, I guess what I'm asking is, when you went through your general fund in your projection earlier in the meeting, you had the estimated deficit for year end at 3 million. But we have used 6 million. So are we using the 6 million as a kind of the largest amount?
Yeah, excellent question. So it is in the current fiscal year in 2020. In that chart that I did show the deficit being 3.3 million, what you didn't see in that chart is the fact that we actually did have $6 million worth of revenue that we did not.
Hold on 1 second, Catherine. Can someone mute themselves? Because I'm hearing us talking.
Pete, could you mute yourself?
Sure.
Okay. What you didn't see in that 3.3 million deficit is the fact that we did have $6 million worth of revenues that we didn't receive. And the fact that we've brought up, because of the operational savings, we brought ourselves up to $2 million, being able to save $2 million, which at that point got us to right around that 3.3 million. So within 2020, we did have $6 million worth of revenue that we're not receiving. Then also in 2021, we're also not receiving about $6 million worth of revenue that we're having to make up for. Good question.
Okay, so basically, if we had not have taken those cost-saving measures on that first slide, when you showed the estimated deficit, that could have been that 6 million, close to that $6 million mark. I just want to make sure I understand. Okay, and what were the $2 million again? How did we bring it from that number to the 3.3 again? I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm kind of writing this down.
So we didn't have about $6 million, and then we've made up about 2.5 million worth of operational savings. Now, some of those savings you're going to say are, the essential hiring freeze that we have. Some things operationally, we've told departments on the very beginning of this in April, we sent out a memo saying departments, you have to reduce your operations by 3%. Some of that came easier than others. Some of it was, certain trainings that we weren't going to do. Some of it was travel we weren't going to do. So certain things immediately brought it down. So in a normal budget, we would be wanting to send our people to training. We would be wanting to do certain other things.
Thank you.
All right, back to you, Pete.
Anybody else? All right, Peter, go right ahead.
All right, thank you. Let's go to the next slide. Thank you, Catherine. Here you can see the what we call the control panel. It's somewhat of a dashboard from our financial model, and it explains the results of our forecast for the city's general fund. So there's a lot going on in this panel. I'll kind of walk you through the most important components. As we just reviewed with Commissioner Simmons and Catherine, the fiscal year 2020, there's reductions on the revenue side, but there's also reductions on the expense side. And then the addition of the FEMA reimbursement results in a balanced plan for the end of year fiscal year 2020. So those are all implemented in that first year. And then projected forward, if I can direct your attention to the left-hand graph, where we project the end of year fund balance for the city's general fund, we're projecting deficits beginning in 21 and growing for the next 5 years. And currently, right now, the city's fund balance is real close to that minimum reserve target of 18% for the stabilization fund. And each year that you experience those deficits, we're assuming that the fund balance is used to cover that deficit. And you'll see the projection of the fund balance falling beneath that target, beginning in 22 and really just getting worse throughout the 5 years. We project the revenues and expenses, and it's shown graphically on the right-hand side with that orange and black line. Whenever the orange line over the 5-year period exceeds the black line, you're running at a deficit. And then whenever it's the reverse, the black line exceeds the orange line, you're running at a surplus and adding to the fund balance. So you'll see there's a little bit of space there between the orange and black line, and that's drawing down your fund balances. This is our diagnostic view of the city if nothing was changed, and if there were no actions taken to avoid these deficits, this is what it would look like over 5 years. So now we can move on to the next slide, and this is kind of our recommended financial plan. We have the minor millage adjustments programmed in for fiscal year 22 and 24, and that bumps up your revenues to keep pace with your costs that are escalating in each year. You'll see in that left-hand graph now, those blue bars that represent the fund balance are meeting that reserve target in each year of the 5 years. And then on the right-hand side, where we have the revenues and expenses represented by the black and orange line, that black line either meets the orange line or exceeds it in all 5 years of the projection period. And this is a sustainable plan. There are some considerations to keep in mind, and there's a lot of uncertainty that's built in right now to how revenues and expenses are coming in related to COVID. There's also a minimal level of capital spending in this current plan. There are a lot of unfunded capital projects that have been identified by staff, and beginning in 21, we're really just meeting that minimal capital investment level. This plan also doesn't include any additional programs outside of the current level of service of the city or FTEs. So at this point, I can take over the controls and switch to the live financial model. Let's see. Okay, that should work. And just to kind of quickly review with you guys what you can do here now. We have a number of different variables that we can adjust right here on the panel and instantaneously show you the results. We can increase revenues by any identified amount, decrease expenses by any identified amount. We can adjust the millage. We can adjust the taxable value increase. There's a whole number of things. We can adjust the capital investment. So at this point, I'd like to turn it back over to the commission. If you have any scenarios that you'd like me to run, I can do so.
Vice Mayor, I think you need to take the meeting for now. Yep.
My apology. Does anybody have a particular scenario that they'd like to run?
I think showing the 10-year would be great.
Absolutely. So I just brought it out to 10 years, and 10 years is a long time, and we're showing some surpluses being built up after the 5-year projection period. And as that situation occurs, the city will have the ability to maneuver and either take on additional capital investment or possibly provide some new programs or services to the residents or give a tax break.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Anybody else? Anything you want to see? All right, Peter. Well, we appreciate it very much.
Thank you all for your time.
All right, Pete, if you wouldn't mind, you can stop sharing your screen. I'll go back and finish out the presentation. There we go. I think what is really key, and thank you very much, Peter from Stantec, for joining us. And it's always great to have another set of eyes. It's always great to be able to have someone else kind of come in and check our work. I ask that of anybody. And you all know my take on, I love having conversations with residents on what they see and some of their ideas. So I very much appreciate Pete coming in and looking at that. Thank you. And the one piece that you can see in that 10-year forecast, when he extended it out, we hit a millage rate that seems to work for us. And that is if we don't work on capital. It seems as though we have somewhat found a good sweet spot without adding anything. So that's really good to see that the expenditures don't continue to rise, but we do still have some areas I know operationally that we do want to address. So when we talk millage rate, these are all of the municipalities in Broward, and this is, you follow the sun, you can see us right here. When I look at smaller, and I'm sorry, if I look at a smaller chart, smaller list, this is kind of where we are at cities similar to us. And you can kind of see where we are here. Again, how much of your tax bill goes to the city? This is the question that that it's the D-myth. The question is when people—
Catherine, I'm going to interrupt you for a moment because I'd like you to go back to the last slide, and I want to ask you or Frank or whomever about the Fort Lauderdale number. If I recall, there's something about, I don't know, police department or something. Why is Fort Lauderdale that low?
Mayor, I don't know. The one thing I will say about this is we don't know what, we have an idea what the millage rates for the other cities are going to be, but we don't know that to be factual. But as far as Fort Lauderdale being so low, I can't remember as to if there's any caveats to that.
I remember some caveat, but I don't remember what it was.
Clearly, they have a high tourism. That's one piece. And they do have certain things within their financial policy that pulls money from different funds to different. So there is an element within their financial policies where they have if-then statements to that.
Got you. That's what I recall. All right. Sorry for the interruption, Catherine. Thank you.
I don't mind it one bit. How much of your tax bill goes to the city? 30% goes to the city of Coral Springs, 33%. The largest piece goes to the school board at 33%, and Broward County, 30%. So the proposed millage rate, 5.8732. This state law requires 4-1 vote to keep the millage rate exactly the same. Any millage rate above the rollback rate is considered to be a tax increase. So while we are saying keep the millage rate, the same millage rate, it will be advertised, unfortunately, as a tax increase. And this is rollback is 5.6008. This is an overall highlight of keeping the millage rate the same. The voter approved debt service will be going slightly down. We've already talked about the fire assessment, solid waste, stormwater. This is the impact of the average single family home. The average market value of a home in Coral Springs is $377,579. And if you take that average assessed value before exemptions, it goes down a little bit to $292,482. And this is where you can see the ad valorem, your property taxes. As I said, the values are increasing. So you are going to pay a little bit more for your home as the overall housing market, the property values have gone up. Again, I've talked about the voter approved debt service going down. This is the fire assessment rate, the stormwater assessment rate, solid waste, and this is the increase per year, $70.31 per month, $5.86.
Catherine, you were reminding me, what are the assumptions that we're making in terms of annual increase, if any, in property taxes, property values?
Going forward in outlying years is about 4%. We are a little on the conservative side. This year is about 4.66%. That number has been slightly going down over the last 2 years. It's still growth. So I'm still saying growth. It's just not growing as rapidly as it was before. So we're still seeing growth going forward about 4%.
Gotcha. Thank you. Any questions on any of these slides? Okay, I don't see any. Thank you.
If we pick up the same house and move it to another city, this is how much more or how much less you will pay. And this is where we are in the budget year. Our next time that we will meet on the budget is at the first public budget hearing, which will be Monday, September 14th. We have it at 5:15 in chambers. And I will say that the state has said you can have your budget hearings through virtually. So if in that case that we have to change that, the state did come out and approve that. As far as me, I'm looking forward to conversations. We've been having conversations with many of the committees to go over the budget. I will continue meeting with people. I appreciate part partnering with Lynn in communications and marketing. We're going to start having series coming out to where we talk about the budget, where we talk a little bit about what we're doing here. We're also going to be having a budget academy on Tuesday, August 11th, where I look forward to sharing more information with our public as well. So this is where we are with our budget presentation, budget material. I really appreciate your time and your attention and your conversation. So thank you. I'm going to hand it back over to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Catherine. Really appreciate it. Frank?
So I'm actually going to ask John to get his reading voice on and go through the items. We need some action on the next several items.
Thank you, Frank. So, Mayor and Commission, thanks to a great job by Catherine and her staff in the City Manager's office. You have done the work, you have given the direction, and now it's time to put that in legal place by making the decision. So we have several assessments that we will do, and you'll also set the trim tonight based on that presentation and the conversation you had. For example, I'll articulate it when appropriate for the solid waste services. You're going to go to option one. So the first resolution is for the fire assessment. It's resolution 20-27, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Coral Springs, Florida, relating to provision of fire services and facilities and programs in the city, providing for purpose and definitions, providing for legislative determinations, establishing the estimated rate for the fire service assessment for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2020, directing the preparation of assessment roll, authorizing a public hearing, directing the provision of notice thereof, providing for an effective date. Request here, Mayor, is for a motion to accept, adopt, set public hearing for Monday, September 14th at 5:15 p.m. And as Catherine mentioned, we are tentatively going to be having that at our City Commission chambers here at 9500 West Sample Road. However, the ad will also state that there may be, alternatively, we may be doing this through communications media technology, consistent with the resolution and governor's executive order based on the pandemic. So having said that, we're looking for a motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, JJ. So this is item number 2. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Moved by Commissioner Vignola, seconded by, is that you, Vice Mayor?
No, it's Sarah.
By Commissioner Sarah. Great. Any discussion? All right, seeing none. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, carries unanimously.
Next resolution, Mayor, is 2020-34, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Coral Springs, Florida, relating to the provision of residential solid waste collection services and facilities and programs in the City of Coral Springs, Florida, providing for purpose and definitions, providing for legislative determinations, establishing the estimated rate for the solid waste collection services assessment for the calendar year beginning January 1st, 2021, directing the preparation of an assessment roll, authorizing a public hearing, directing the provision of notice thereof, providing for an effective date. And I'll notice that the rate will be option 1, which was provided to you earlier. You had discussion and gave that direction. It's a request to accept, adopt said public hearing for September 14th at 5:15 p.m., either at Commission chambers or virtually as allowed under law.
Great, is there a motion? Moved by Commissioner Vignola.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Sarah. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, carries unanimously. Catherine, if you don't mind, can you just share the number that people would call if they had questions about the budget?
Absolutely. That number is 954-346-1732. And that number is on trim. If you want a second number, and I'm always happy to give my number here, it's 954-344-5920.
Great, thank you very much. Back to you, JJ.
Thank you, Mayor. The next item is Resolution 2020-35, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Coral Springs, Florida, relating to the assessment of costs incurred by the city to correct public health, safety, and welfare violations on certain real properties in accordance with Section 184.4 of the city's Land Development Code. Determining that certain real property has been specifically benefited by the city's abatement of public health, safety, and welfare violations thereon, directing the preparation of preliminary assessment roll, authorizing a public hearing, directing provision of notice in connection therewith, providing for conflict, providing for severability, providing for an effective date. Request to accept, adopt, and set public hearing for Monday, 9/14, 5:15 p.m., either here at City Hall, 9500 West Sample Road, or virtually consistent with Governor's order.
Move to approve.
All right, Very good. And is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Carries unanimously.
Thank you. The next resolution is 2020-37, which is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Coral Springs, Florida, relating to the provision of stormwater collection program in the City of Coral Springs, Florida, providing for purpose and definitions, providing for legislative determinations, establishing the estimated rate for the stormwater collection program assessment for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2020, directing the preparation of the assessment roll, authorizing a public hearing, directing provision of notice thereof, providing an effective date. We request to accept, adopt, set public hearing for 5/15 at 9/14, September 14th, either at City Hall here at 9500 West Sample Road or virtually, depending on the pandemic.
Move to approve.
Again.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, carries unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor, the next one is establishing our TRIM, our truth in millage, and also articulating the requirements consistent with Chapter 200 Florida statutes. So this motion, we request that the City Commission take the following actions in this motion. Establish the rollback operating millage rate at 5.6008 mils. Establish the proposed operating millage rate of 5.8732 mils, which is 0 mils or 0% more than the current rate of 5.8732. Establish the voter-approved debt millage rate of 0.2412, which is 4.8% less than the current rate of 0.2534. Establish a required tentative budget public hearing on Monday, September 14, 2020 at 5:15 in the City Commission chambers, alternatively virtually through communication media technology, depending on the status of the pandemic. Establish a required final budget hearing on Monday, September 21st, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. in the City Commission chambers or virtually. Authorize appropriate legal advertisements to be advertised on about September 4, 2020, September 18, 2020, and addressing the final budget hearing on Monday, September 21st, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. Looking for a motion to incorporate all that and request to approve.
So moved.
Looking for a second.
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor. Any discussion?
Take Josh.
We'll take Josh for that one. Sounds fine. You got it. Any discussion? Go right ahead, Larry.
I know, it's going to have to be advertised as a tax increase, and it's a little over $5 a month for the average single family home. When you look at all the services provided by the City of Coral Springs, I think it's a great deal. And knowing that we're setting the city up financially to continue to be successful in the future, I think is important. I know it's a little bit more money, but when you look at everything you get, I think it's a great deal.
Yeah, I agree with you, Commissioner Vignola, and I do think that our public is in alignment with this. Hopefully not hearing from people tonight isn't because they're not aware, but they're in alignment with our directive and they have a lot of faith in our city. So we'll see if we're hearing a lot of comments between now and September 14th. I really appreciate, Catherine, that you're doing the Budget Academy. And this looks like a great budget. A lot of work went into it, and we all appreciate it. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, carries unanimously.
Mayor, one more item is the fiscal year 2021 business plan, with Catherine Gibbons has articulated so well. Just simply a request to adopt that.
Is there a motion? Moved by Commissioner Vignola.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Sarah. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, very good. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Mayor,
So
we
our
have,
next item on the agenda, Frank, you covering this one?
No, we're gonna have Lynn come in and just quickly, we have two items that we're gonna quickly just give commission an update on because they're timely. We're gonna have Lynn come on and just give us what we're gonna do for marketing for the upcoming elections. And then following Lynn, Chief Perry is gonna come on and just give us a update on Commissioner Simmons led task force and kind of tell you where we're going with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Commission, City Manager Babinick. I'm just waiting for, there's my PowerPoint. I was asked to provide the city's plans to promote voting during the primary and general election. This promotion is important, especially these times during the pandemic. My presentation is a very brief overview of our plans for communication, but we do remind our residents who are over 18 and eligible, it is their civic duty to participate in local, state, and national elections. Next slide, please. As you know, we use a wide range of digital communication to promote our messaging. These include awareness campaigns on all social platforms, which we'll be using now through the general election. We will be using the hashtag CSVote. I will go over that timeline in just a moment. In addition to digital communication, we're utilizing entryway banners and indexing signs, and we're fortunate to have an early voting location at the Northwest Regional Library here in Coral Springs, and we'll be promoting its availability. Early voting will start August 8th through the 16th, and while some prefer to vote in person during this pandemic, one of the safest things you can do is vote by mail. You can request your ballot at browardsoe.org or call 954-357-7055. The last day to request your vote by mail ballot is August 8th for the primary election. And in October, it will be October 24th for the general election. Remember, you must sign your envelope before mailing it back. We've gotten a lot of questions. If you request a mail-in ballot, can you still vote in person? The answer to that is you can fill out your ballot safely at home. And if you prefer, you can return it to an early voting location or your precinct on election day. Next slide. As you know, we're always using new ways to engage our younger voters. The best way to influence that generation to vote is digitally. So we plan to use a combination of interactive and shareable posts, mainly on our Instagram platform. In addition, we're going to engage our city's boards, committees, and working groups to share our social posts and encourage others to vote in our community. Next slide, please. Here's the timeline I spoke about earlier related to the promotion. Again, the last day to request your mail-in ballot is August 8th, the same day early voting starts in Broward County. Unfortunately, the deadline of register to vote in the primary election has passed, but for the general election, you must register by October 5th. I do want to mention that the supervisor of elections did inform us about their plans to keep voters and poll workers safe from COVID-19 during the election. They're taking precautions like safe social distancing, disinfecting areas after each use, mask and face shield use by poll workers. So they are letting us know at the city what measures they're taking. So whether by mail or in person, we're asking all of our residents who are eligible to exercise their right to vote. For additional details or information in multiple languages, or to register as a poll worker, visit browardsoe.org or call 954-357-7055. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Lynn. Excellent. Excellent. And we have one more item on the agenda.
Mayor, Commissioner Vignola has his hand up.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner Vignola.
Real quick there, with the presidential election, and everyone, I think, knows, that there's a presidential election going on, but don't forget about the local election. There are differences between candidates. I think it's important that you go ahead. Don't just go in there and vote and pick one when you get there. If you're not sure, if you don't have time to look up the local candidates, it's okay to skip a certain race. It doesn't mean that your vote for president's not going to count or whatever. But I would ask that everyone goes ahead and puts a little bit of time in. As someone who's run a few times here in the city, we put a lot of time and effort into running, and I'm not running again, so I'm okay with saying this. You put a lot of time and effort into running, and I think it's important that if you're going to go ahead and vote in those races, go ahead and do the homework and read up about the candidates, see what most aligns with your beliefs. But I think it is very, very important to go ahead and look at the local candidates because, as we all know that are in this Zoom right here, local elected officials have much more impact on your day-to-day lives than the federal candidates. So,
no question about that. No question. Any other comments? All right, thank you. Go ahead, Frank.
Mayor, next, Chief Perry is going to come up and give us an overview. Chief?
Good evening, Chief.
Good evening. On June 18th, myself, Commissioner Simmons, city staff, and some community members got together for our first meeting to discuss important topics surrounding the George Floyd incident, as well as policing in America and social reform. None of us really knew what to expect when we went into this meeting. The first meeting lasted for over 3 hours, and I think everybody really wanted to see it continue when we had to end it. I think everybody that attended it got something out of it, and I know that we all look forward to continuing the discussions. The goals of the discussions were to discuss police policies, police reforms, and to see where our department relates to the national narrative on the topic. You know, when the meeting first started, I really didn't know what to expect. I was ready, willing, and able to defend our department. I didn't know what to expect from the other participants, but I truly believe in our department. And I felt as though we have one of the finest law enforcement agencies in the nation. But I'm a realist, and I'd be foolish to think that we didn't have room to improve. In fact, I think what makes us best is the fact that we realize that we can always improve. It was with that in mind that I eagerly participated in the meeting. I wanted to hear from our citizens. I wanted to hear different perspectives and different points of view. Our work's not done. We had a scenario day planned, and I know that we wanted to meet again, try and finalize some of the topics that we talked about. We had to put those on hold because of the COVID crisis. But I wanted to highlight some of the accomplishments we made so far. I believe that you all received the document today that outlines our action items. These action items came out of the discussions that we had. These were important topics that were controversial issues that we saw on the news every day. With the documents, within the document, there was a chart, and it has all of the items that we were going to work on and the percentage of where we were in completion of those items. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go over each one with you, but I wanted to go over a few highlights. And if I could, I'd like to start on banning chokeholds. You know, chokeholds were something that we never really used here. You know, it's not in our policies. In fact, 10 years ago, the Broward Chiefs got together and sent a letter to the police academy and asked them not to teach, you know, chokeholds. So it wasn't something that we really taught here. So when I looked in our policies, I noticed that it wasn't explicitly outlined in there. And the reason for that is it was something that we didn't do. So, you know, we went ahead and added language in there that specifically bans chokeholds. Of course, you know, unless you're in a life or death situation for yourself or the protection of somebody else. Body cameras is the next thing I'd like to talk about. You know, there was some discussion over turning the camera off. I guess if you're in a controversial situation, we added language in there. Actually, we didn't add it, it was already there. We had put together a program that I thought was I know was used as a model program for all the other agencies in the county. Even though we didn't have body cameras at that time, we had written the policy, and other agencies went ahead and used it. So that language was already in there, and you know the discipline includes up and to termination, depending upon how severe you know the incident is. So you know we definitely wanted to make sure that was in there, and it was. Like I said, we have a strong policy, and it's been you know used by a lot of other agencies. I had a discussion with Mr. Satz, the state attorney, and you know he is a big proponent of body cameras. He's finding that if you don't have them, it's harder and harder to get convictions. So you know there's a lot of good reasons to have it. It's something that we fully support, and you know we've rolled them out to every one of our operational units out in the field. The next step that we have is we want to roll it out to our SROs, and we want to make sure that our SROs are equipped with it. And we're you know, looking for funding right now. We've got a couple ideas where we're going to try and get the funding for that. But that's our next step, and we continue to work on that. The next issue I want to talk about is the duty to intervene. You know, we always had something. The state statute covers that. You know, if you fail to intervene and somebody's seriously injured or killed, you could be charged under culpable negligence under state statute. But when we looked, we wanted to make it explicitly clear. So we added some language in there, and if you'll see, I think I have it listed as 90% complete. And the reason it's 90% complete is we've written it, we've put it through. There's a process that we have that goes through vetting it, and it allows us to make sure that it gets signed off properly. And we're almost there. It's in review right now. Most of these policies are. The next one I want to talk about is the duty to render first aid. We always had that in our policy, but when I reviewed it, one of the items or one of the things that I noticed is where it was listed in our policy was under if we used our firearms. God forbid we had to shoot somebody. It explicitly stated in there that you needed to check their condition, render first aid, call EMS, all of that. But when under our taser policy, it wasn't in there. And it's not unusual if you tase somebody, they fall down, they get a cut. Of course we render first aid, we do as a practice, but it wasn't explicitly stated in there. So I went ahead and made that change as well. So, with those changes, some of the other things that we wanted to talk about was the ability to, keep involved in our community, seek out more ways to be involved in the community. We do a myriad of community involvement activities. A lot of them right now, unfortunately, because of COVID-19, have been put on hold. We found ways to do them virtually, and we've been pretty successful with that. But we, like everybody else, are looking forward to getting back to when we can actually have face-to-face meetings and participate with the community. But those are the highlights of the progress we've made so far. I would encourage everybody to take some time at your leisure to read them over. If you have any questions about them, I'm always available to answer them. I want to say that I know our work isn't done. I want to thank Commissioner Simmons for spearheading this initiative and getting these meetings together. And I know that there's still more work to be done. As you can see from the chart that I sent you, we're not at 100% with everything, but we're working hard to get there. So I look forward to continuing with the policies. I look forward to getting them to 100%, and I look forward to having more discussions in the future. With that said, I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody has in reference to that initiative.
Any questions from anyone?
I have a quick
Go
one.
ahead, Commissioner Vignola.
The SROs wearing body cameras in schools, that's got to create a lot of issues, correct?
I don't think so. I think at first there was a little bit of a, some, I don't want to say pushback, it's too harsh of a word. But, we've had some discussions with the school board about it. But, all the schools right now have cameras in them, all over, the hallways and everything. That's linked into part of our real-time crime center. But I think it's important, like I said, in my discussions with Mr. Satz, the state attorney's office is struggling to take cases where you don't have body cameras,
I'm more curious as to, when they turn it on and off, dealing with the classroom and those rules that.
Okay. Look.
And we can get into that later if you could have time.
No. We it's not like they're walking around with filming, all day long. That's not it. The cost of storing that amount of video would be crazy. But if we get called to a fight, for instance, or we get called to some sort of thing, that's when they would activate the body camera and then go ahead and respond to that call. So they're not walking around filming all day, and that's not something that I would want them to do. We don't have the staff, to even view any of that, all that material. We certainly don't want to pay for the storage of that. So that's not something we'd like to do.
Yeah, I was just curious as to when they turn them on, when they get active on it, because I know they can't wear it all day, and I know they're not supposed to go into classrooms with it when they're talking to kids and whatever. Okay, all right, thank you.
Only when we're going to a call, an incident that occurred.
Thank you, Chief.
Great. Anybody else? Commissioner Simmons, would you like to share?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to make sure I give my colleagues any other time to say anything if they needed to. I just want to make sure that when we talk about the duty to intervene, what we discussed in the meetings as well was, duty to intervene between, responding officers as well. Because we used the example of George Floyd, and how you had the other cops just kind of sitting there and letting the guy, sit on George Floyd's neck. I know that when we had that issue with the officer coming to the scene with the suspect sitting on the ground and getting kicked in the face, there were officers that kind of pulled him away, but I'm just trying to make sure that we have that codified as well. A lot of the things we focused on initially was kind of just understanding how policing works, how our department works, and then looking for opportunities to kind of make sure we add things in, even if we are doing them in practice, but just making sure they're added in so that they can be pointed to if need be. Thank you to Chief Perry, Deputy Chief Backer, Deputy Chief McKean for being involved in this process as well. And thank you to all the community members that joined us as well for those meetings. Thank you to staff and Frank for being kind of just listening in on the conversation, being a part of it, and kind of helping shape this. This is not the only time we're going to meet. We're not going to, this isn't, I'm not one to do things just for, social media attention and things of that nature. I think as I've stated from the beginning, and as I stated in the meeting, this is an opportunity to improve. And it's not to try to play gotcha or anything of that nature, but it's just to make sure that we do what we need to do to stay on the cutting edge, to stay innovative, to stay transparent, to be, make sure that we are being accountable. And again, it's not to wave a finger or anything of that nature. I don't play sides. I don't do that. This is just making sure that we do what we have to do so that I can continue to brag about Coral Springs as I have been, even when I was a candidate. So thank you to all to us starting this. And this is not the first time that we're doing this. I think it's also important to point out that we aren't just focusing on the social media trends or the easy can't wait thing. We didn't focus just on that. We focused on really detailed and intimate items within our department, and we're going to continue to do that. And I think that's something that needs to be said more because this isn't just a knee-jerk reaction. This isn't just we're just going to respond to the moment. We're actually doing something that's going to set us up for the future to be even better. So thank you.
Great. I appreciate your leadership and your input, and as well as the input of everybody. Vice Mayor Carter.
I just wanted to say compliments for being proactive to the Chief and to Commissioner Simmons. And I know we're all supportive of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Commissioner Sarah, anything from you?
I just appreciate Chief Perry and Commissioner Simmons' leadership and the support of city staff and putting a lot of conversation and time into it. And when, like Commissioner Simmons mentioned, it doesn't stop here. We got to continue the work and find ways to improve. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Anything to wrap up with Chief Perry or Frank?
If I could, I'd just talk about the duty to intervene. It specifically states what Commissioner Simmons was talking about. That as you know, in my letter to you to the commission that I wrote right after the George Floyd incident, one of the things that I said that I was shocked by was how other people stood around and allowed that to occur. So it was with that in mind that we changed the wording, and the wording does specifically require our officers to intervene in that situation. And just to follow up, look, we have plans to continue to meet. We have plans to continue to go. So I will tell you that it really, again, I didn't know what to expect when we first went to the meeting. And I really felt better, as did all the other officers that were there. Anytime that you can talk, you have understanding, and that's where people learn to come together. So again, kudos for hosting the meetings, and I appreciate the support of everybody on the commission with that, and the city manager allowing us the time to make that happen. So I appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Frank?
Mayor, I just want to let you know that as Commissioner Simmons and Chief Perry said, we will be moving forward with some other items on this, and just kind of highlight, we're going to be starting a series through communication and marketing where Commissioner Simmons will be sitting down, having conversations with law enforcement officers, having conversations with community leaders around this topic and making sure that we are meeting the community's needs and desires. And the other thing is within this process, you really didn't hear much about mental health. And that is because that is going to be a standalone process that we are going to tackle. Chief Perry and I are working on this collectively, and we have some meetings coming up to where we will evaluate and see how we can put services in place that best fit our community's needs and can safely do so. So you'll have more to come on that.
Great, thank you. One of our citizens that put in the video for the mayor's town hall yesterday suggested a police town hall. Chief Perry indicated he was open to that. I would suggest it actually be a public safety town hall.
I would think. Well, I would think that it's probably best to stay focused on one entity, just to kind of have that streamlined. You don't want things to get muddled. There's probably, that just needs to be that specific item addressed if we're doing this with the national conversation.
I'm okay with that. I'm good with that. Is that okay with you all, Vice Mayor? Commissioner Sarah?
I'm fine with staying the course. I mean, we've already kind of put together a blueprint of where we want to go, and I'd rather just stay the course. But I mean, it was great that the resident did suggest that, but I feel like we have something that's kind of relevant and related to it. So,
and I guess, and maybe the video series will kind of address some of the issues and things that would be put up or brought about during the town hall. I mean, that's, the video series thing is kind of a new item, but we'll be working to put that together so we can share what that looks like. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, I operate at the will of the commission as everyone on this call. So
I would support it because the transparency that's sought and that's being provided and allows more people to be able to share.
Mayor, we'll look at, see what some options are. Let me talk with communication and marketing and see how this fits into their marketing plan to make sure it's useful and make sure it's something that will add value. And if you allow us, we'll get back to you on that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, Commissioner Sarah.
Mayor Brooks, thanks. As far as the town hall last night, just great job for the entire staff and everyone that participated. Do we have any idea of how many people tuned in, or is there a way to monitor and gauge that?
There is, and I'm sure Lynn has the answer.
Thanks, Commissioner Sarah. Yes, for online viewership, during the duration, we were averaging at about 100, which is great. If you think about a community meeting, having 100 people get together for a meeting. So I would gauge that as successful. Unfortunately, we don't have a tool that allows us to gauge TV viewership. So a lot of people do tune in from home, and we do receive a lot of feedback. In addition, once the video is done, which it's complete now and it's a YouTube video, we also then push it out on Nextdoor. So that's another platform. So people are seeing it from different levels. We also advertised it that way so people could submit questions in advance. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you very much.
Great. Are we complete with the agenda, Frank?
Yes, sir.
Great. Any final comments, thoughts, or suggestions from my colleagues? We'll start with you, Commissioner Vignola.
Just once again, great job by the entire team, Catherine, Frank, putting this whole thing together. I know it's really challenging dealing with COVID and all those different elements related to it, but I very confident that you guys have gone ahead and made the right recommendations, and we're in a great position moving forward. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Vice Mayor Carter.
Sorry about that. No, compliments to staff. I know how my stomach gets when I start thinking about tax increases and things going up, but we're running a business here. And we all know with the invoices that we get that everything's going up. And I hope that the residents understand that a lot goes into this from staff and from us, just because we want the city to succeed and we want the city to be safe. And I just thank everybody for all their input. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Commissioner Simmons.
The only thing I wanted to bring up tonight, and I mentioned it kind of early on in the shutdown, was something of an outdoor community car type event. I know we had, we did a lot with the Feeding South Florida, but there have been, drive-in movie theaters popping up all over the place. We're just hoping, and I hate asking because I know you all are doing so much, but I ask because this is my platform to ask. If there's any type of thing we can do like that, obviously cost effective and all that stuff. Catherine, I know you're on here, so don't cringe. But, I just wonder if there's something that we can do to kind of mark the end of the summer. I mean, I feel bad because there are a lot of people that have done what they needed to do. They stayed socially distanced, stayed in the house, they wore their masks, they're doing everything. And, initially back in March, we didn't anticipate to be in June or July with our cases skyrocketing like this. And so, with the uncertainty with schools and everything that's just going on, it would be nice if we could put something together like that. I just don't know, I just don't know, but I at least wanted to ask.
Commissioner Simmons, I still have that on my list. You had brought up some type of maybe outdoor event or virtual event. It's still on the list and we're still monitoring it. We're hopeful that we're going to be able to do something, but with the numbers climbing, we're getting kind of less and less of what our ability is, but I will definitely get back to you with some suggestions.
Frank, for our call tomorrow, I have an idea that I'll explore with you first.
Okay.
Commissioner Simmons, anything else? All right. And now lastly, Commissioner Sarah.
I just want to echo what my colleagues said. Great job to the staff in preparation for this evening and also for our previous meeting. Super excited about Neighborhoods of Integrity. So I'm very appreciative that that's part of the initiatives. And just have to give another shout out to the grants team. I'll probably say that every time, but this is found money. It's something that provides opportunity within our city and also could potentially save our residents dollars down the road. So just a great job to everyone that's involved in the part of that work. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Awesome. So I'm going to echo those acknowledgments and sentiments, and also, Frank, just tell you in front of everybody, again, you are the right man at the right time. You're doing an incredible job, and you do it with a lot of heart and with a lot of patience and a lot of acknowledgement. You give acknowledgement all the time to our team, and that just goes such a long way. So, and I am, sharing with you thoughts of all five of us about our appreciation of your leadership.
Thank you, Mayor. I truly appreciate that. And I'll say it again, we have a great team and I'm honored to be part of it. So thank you.
Well, with that, we are adjourned, everybody. Thank you for a wonderful meeting. Have a good evening. And remember, if you have budget questions, you can call 346-1732. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.